This is easily one of my all-time favorite questions. When should I start speaking in my target language? Should I start speaking immediately, or should I wait a little bit, focus on input and then give it a go? Well, today we're going to go over the pros and cons of both approaches, and along the way I'm also going to share my personal experiences because I speak 6 languages and I'm fluent in 5 of them. And I've tried out both methods, but I also want you guys to share down below your experiences because it might actually help other people. And yeah, towards the end of the video I'm also going to talk about the 3 big factors that help me find the sweet spot of when to actually start speaking in my target language. And here we go. Let's look at the start speaking immediately approach. The first pro is fairly obvious. Your speaking skills will improve faster. It's pretty simple. The more you speak, the more you progress, and I've experienced this in Thailand. I stayed there for 6 months and I wanted to explore the country, as in explore remote places, and that's only possible if you speak the language. So I started to speak Thai from day one, and let me tell you, native speakers love it when you show interest in their language. I made so many friends and I got to practice day in and day out, and I started to sound more and more like a native speaker. It was absolutely worth it. These people made learning languages just so much more easier, so much more fun and so much more real. The more you speak, the more you progress, and the more you progress, the more accessible you become to native speakers. And this means more opportunities to speak and listen to your target language. This is super nice, believe me. The second pro, however, is a little bit less obvious, especially if you haven't tried out the start speaking immediately approach. What happens is, the more you speak, the more likely you are to make mistakes, and this is a game changer because you will have a different mindset right from the start. Making mistakes will be the most natural thing ever for you. Speaking in a foreign language is one, if not the most stressful activity there is for language learners. And the sooner you realize that language learning is about making mistakes and also keep progressing, the better. Sure, making mistakes in public may be embarrassing. I know what it feels like. I've been there. I publish videos on YouTube, as you know. But the sooner you understand that no one actually cares about your mistakes, the better. Every mistake, every little triumph will take you where you want to be, and put yourself out there despite the possibility to make tons of mistakes, because if you don't, you won't successfully learn your target language. And as a bonus, this kind of mindset has positive effects outside of learning languages. Pro number 3 is fairly obvious. You will apply what you learned and see actual results. And finishing that first real conversation is a big achievement. It really boosts your confidence, especially when you see and also experience that what you learn is actually useful. So what happens when you're confident? It starts being fun. And what we do when we have fun? We keep doing it. If I hadn't started to speak Thai so early on, I would have missed out on so much, because with time I went to more and more extreme remote places because I knew what I'm doing works. I see progress and I know that I can progress even more. I just have to continue. But there is one big downside to this start speaking immediately approach. Even though native speakers, they may appreciate the fact that you are interested in learning the target language, they may actually switch to a better known mutual language, especially your friends, because let's be honest, it's very tiring listening to beginners speak their language day in and day out. Strangers may be okay with it because they know they don't have to put up with it all the times, but real friends, they are a little bit different. They are less likely to commit unless they see you actively progressing. So communicating in a better known mutual language is actually more efficient for both parties. So finding real friends you can hang out with and also practice at the same time is not easy, and I've experienced this so often that people try to speak in a different language because they know it's going to be easier. So keep this in mind. Let's look at the focus on input first, then start speaking approach. Pro number 1 is hands down the biggest pro. The more time you dedicate to input, especially comprehensible input, the better your reading and listening skills will be. Chances are high that The conversations will be easier for you to understand, especially if you focus the majority of your time practicing your listening skills, learning vocab, and also consuming content for native speakers. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big fan of the comprehensible input theory, and I believe it's absolutely necessary for acquiring languages, especially languages that aren't similar to your first language, but also languages you can't really speak in your home country. In my case, Korean. It's totally different from all the 5 languages I'm already fluent in: Portuguese, Luxembourgish, French, German, and English. So in my case, this approach makes a lot of sense for this language, and the majority of my time I spend practicing my listening skills, so that whenever I interact with a Korean native speaker, that I can at least understand him or her. And let's not forget, whether or not you can fluently speak your target language, if you can't understand other people, it's absolutely worthless. But this approach comes with a pretty huge downside. Unfortunately, many people develop the wrong mindset. They only speak when they absolutely must, because they are afraid of making mistakes in front of people. They are not used to it. Worst case scenario, you start having your first real conversation with a native speaker and you realize that all that time you spent learning your target language didn't really prepare you for this, and you give up. This is obviously a serious problem, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty disappointed when I found out that my Korean speaking skills weren't as good as I believed them to be. And it was a serious blow to me, and it actually took some time to get back into continuing learning the language, because I didn't go out, I didn't put myself out there enough, I didn't go out of my comfort zone, and I didn't experience making mistakes in front of people. So it was quite a blow for me. There's no secret formula that tells you when to start speaking in your target language. However, it's possible to determine on which method you primarily focus on when you start learning a new language. Here's how I do it. There are 3 big factors that help me decide: personality, circumstances, and language similarities. Personality is important because if you are outgoing, don't care about making mistakes, and you just want to experience the joy of speaking to native speakers, then start to speak sooner rather than later may be a good idea. But some people, they are a little bit less interested in meeting with native speakers, and they do prefer to read books, listen to podcasts, and that's totally fine, because learning languages isn't only about speaking. It's also about all the rest. So it's totally fine to wait a little bit before you start to speak in your target language. Personally, I'm somewhere in the middle, so both approaches suit my style, and that's why personality isn't the biggest factor, at least not for me. The second factor, however, is arguably the biggest one, because the way I would learn Korean in Korea is totally different from the way I would learn it here at home in Luxembourg. Living and working in a foreign country, dating a foreign girl, living and being close to native speakers, being part of a community really makes a big difference. And I can't do any of those things here in Luxembourg, so I do need to take into account my circumstances and also the opportunities I can reasonably create. So the approach I take needs to make sense. The third one is language similarities, and it makes a big difference, because let's assume I'm a Portuguese native speaker and I want to learn Spanish. Both languages are super similar, and all I have to do is speak Portuguese with a Spanish accent. Just kidding. What I mean is that I can do real life things right from the start, and super easy actually. But if I want to learn Korean as a native Portuguese speaker, English speaker, Russian speaker, whatever, then waiting a little bit might be the way to go. You will naturally need a little bit more time to speak somewhat well. But as you can see, it's always best to consider personality, circumstances, and also language similarities, so that you can find that sweet spot of when to start speaking for yourself. You might have guessed it by the way I talked about it, but I believe that to start speaking sooner rather than later is better. But me telling you is pointless, and you have to experience things for yourself. Thanks for watching, it really means a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave lots and lots of comments, and don't be afraid to ask questions, of course. And if you want to support me, share it with fellow language learners, family and friends, and you can also directly support me on coffee.com/HeyIt'sMigu, and I guess I will see you in my next one. Bye bye.